After I remove the ice pack, I use a deep pore cleanser lotion. In the shower, I use a water-activated gel cleanser. Then a honey almond body scrub. And on the face, an exfoliating gel scrub.
What if I told you that your $400 moisturizer has more in common with ancient Roman bathhouses and Victorian powder rooms than it does with science-backed dermatology? That your curated bathroom shelf, lined with glass dropper bottles, pastel tubs, and impossibly chic toners, is less about self-care and more about self-branding. In today's world, skincare is no longer just a hygiene habit or a beauty routine. It's a declaration of identity, a flex of discipline, and most importantly, a symbol of status. Having good skin has become the new wealth indicator, the 21st century version of a designer handbag or a private gym membership. In the same way a Rolex or a Hermes Birkin once spoke volumes without a word, your luminous, poreless face now speaks for you, not just about your genetics, but your resources. Think about it. Flawless skin implies time, money, knowledge, and access. 4 things that aren't evenly distributed. The hot girl morning routine on TikTok isn't just about achieving health or glow. It's a performance, often backdropped by marble countertops and softly lit hygiene rooms, where skincare isn't practical, it's theatrical. On YouTube and Instagram, skincare shelf tours have become the new closet hauls, showing off serums from La Mer, Augustinus Bader, and Dr. Barbara Sturm like trophies of wellness. Even drugstore dupes have taken on their own aspirational language. Not because they work better, but because they look the part. In the past, status was communicated through corsets, lace gloves, parasols, or exclusive access to Roman baths. Today, it's through cryoglobes, snail mucin, and face oils that cost more than a car payment. So why now? Why are we so collectively obsessed with our skin? Not just as a surface to treat, but as a way of signaling value and virtue. In this video, we're going to unpack how skincare, once an intimate, often invisible act, has evolved into a public ritual of quiet hierarchy and aesthetic class warfare. We'll look at how rituals of bathing and beautification have always been deeply intertwined with wealth and morality. From the opulence of Roman baths to the moral rigidity of Victorian cleanliness, all the way to the modern luxury cult surrounding La Mer. We'll also examine how the rise of the wellness economy and social media has turned skin into both canvas and currency, a soft-glowing billboard for how well you're doing in life. We'll begin with a look at how ancient and communal skincare practices evolved in today's hyper-individualized, influencer-led routines. From there, we'll explore how historical ideals of morale and cleanliness have re-emerged in the modern clean girl culture. We'll also dive into the branding mythology behind luxury skincare, especially La Mer, and how it created a new kind of beauty aristocracy. And finally, we'll ask what this means in a world where wellness is increasingly treated as a virtue and class divide. Is skincare really self-care, or is it just another status game? Let's get into it. Chapter 1. Roman baths to hot girl routines. Long before influencers were guiding us through their morning skincare rituals in soft golden lighting, skincare was already deeply entwined with social performance. In ancient Rome, bathing wasn't just a hygienic necessity, it was a cornerstone of elite social life. Public bathhouses were architectural marvels that reflected Rome's obsession with order, luxury, and public life. These weren't just places to scrub dirt away. They were ornate, multi-room complexes filled with hot and cold pools, steam rooms, gardens, libraries, and massage chambers. They were centers of gossip, business, politics, and beauty, essentially the Roman equivalent of a country club, a co-working space and a day spa rolled into one. What's particularly fascinating is that skincare was already part of this ancient ritual. Romans exfoliated with strigils, curved metal tools used to scrape oils and dirt off the skin, and massaged their bodies with scented olive oils infused with herbs and flowers. These oils weren't just moisturizing, they were sensory experiences, carefully chosen to reflect one's taste and wealth. Maintaining a radiant, smooth, and fragrant body wasn't merely for health or comfort. It was a visual cue of status, discipline, and even patriotism. In a society that valued control, physical appearance was a form of civic virtue. Now fast forward 2,000 years and the hot girl routine of the 2020s starts to feel eerily familiar. While today's bathhouses are more likely to be bathrooms with marble counters and LED mirrors, the essence of the ritual hasn't changed. Skincare is still about being seen. It's no longer just a personal, behind closed doors habit. It's a performance, staged daily on social media. Morning routine videos often begin with a perfectly lit bedroom, segueing into a montage of chilled jade rollers, gliding across cheekbones, frothy cleansers massaged into the skin, and a carousel of tiny, expensive bottles being dabbed and tapped with meticulous care. There's almost a spiritual quality to the process, one that mirrors the serenity and sensuality of ancient bathing rituals, just rebranded for an audience of millions. And much like Roman baths, these videos aren't really about cleanliness. They're about the display, the showing, not the doing. Each video serves as both instruction and aspiration, part tutorial and part social signaling. The influencers starring in these routines aren't just selling products, they're selling access to a lifestyle, one of leisure, control, and curated elegance. Their smooth skin and glowing complexions are evidence of their discipline, their self-love, and crucially, their financial ability to prioritize these things. To film a 10-minute skincare routine every morning, you need time. To afford a lineup of products that cost hundreds of dollars, if not thousands, you need a disposable income. Skincare has become a new kind of soft power, a form of aesthetic capitalism that relies less on labels and more about the glow. This phenomenon extends to what's become known as the shelfie, a term coined to describe the carefully photographed skincare shelf. These displays are often more styled than functional. Think clean lines, soft pastels, and luxurious packaging all lined up like a modern apothecary meets Instagram bait. Brands like Drunk Elephant, La Mer, and Sunday Riley dominate these spaces, not necessarily because of how effective they are, but because of what they represent. They signal aspiration and, most importantly, purchasing power. A shelfie isn't just a display of skincare, it's a statement of who you are, or at least who you want to be perceived as. What's so fascinating is how our desire to be perceived as someone who takes care of themselves has become more important than the act itself. Just as Roman elites would linger in the baths to reinforce their place in society, we too are curating routines not just to nourish the skin, but to narrate a lifestyle. In both cases, the ritual becomes a kind of theater, an intimate performance of self-discipline, self-love, and above all, self-worth. But here's the question: are we really doing this for our skin or for the algorithm? Are we caring for ourselves, or are we performing care for the sake of social capital? And in the end, how much of our skincare obsession is truly about health, and how much is about being seen as the kind of person who can afford to glow? Chapter 2: Victorian Cleanliness and Skin as Moral Currency. In the Victorian era, skin wasn't just skin, it was a moral mirror. A woman's complexion was read like a resume of her character. Pale skin implied virtue, purity, and femininity, while any blemish, tan, or flush of color could mark her as unclean, unruly, or morally questionable. It was the age of hyper-surveillance, cloaked in etiquette, where a woman's external appearance was believed to reflect her internal discipline. If your face was spotless, so too was your soul. This belief didn't just shape beauty standards, it reinforced a rigid social hierarchy where class, morality, and hygiene became inseparably linked. The idea of cleanliness is next to godliness wasn't just a catchy saying, it was a cultural mandate. Victorian society placed enormous importance on bathing, grooming, and visible restraint. But this wasn't hygiene as we understand it today. The goal wasn't necessarily health, but the appearance of control. Middle and upper class women spent hours in their boudoirs applying powders, pomades, and tonics, not only to enhance their appearance but to communicate virtue and class stability. Meanwhile, working class women, whose exposure to the sun marked their skin, were viewed as morally inferior, simply because they bore the visible signs of labor. Even freckles could be scandalous, a mark of time spent outdoors. away from the delicate shaded interiors associated with femininity and respectability. Skin in this context became a form of moral currency. The paler and more porcelain your skin, the more you were believed to embody self-control, modesty, and gentility. Beauty wasn't just about aesthetics, it was a form of social policing. Soap advertisements in the 19th century leaned heavily into this narrative, marketing cleanliness not just as desirable, but as righteous. One Pear soap ad from the era proclaimed that their product would cleanse not only the skin, but the soul. The subtext was clear. To be physically clean was to be morally pure. And of course, these standards were nearly impossible for the lower classes to attain, not just because of the cost of the products, but because of their lifestyles, environments, and workloads. Now let's fast forward to today, where a similar logic has been quietly repackaged for the age of wellness and social media. Enter the clean girl aesthetic, a visual language defined by slick back buns, laminated brows, glossy lips, and luminous makeup-free skin. Popularized by influencers like Hailey Bieber and Sophia Richie, the clean girl look appears effortless, fresh, and natural. But make no mistake, it's deeply curated, expensive, and built on a foundation of inaccessible perfection. In many ways, it echoes the Victorian values of restraint, modesty, and cleanliness, only this time filtered through HD cameras and $200 serums. There's a quiet irony in the term clean girl. It implies purity, health, and natural beauty, but achieving that glow often requires a heavy investment in both time and money. Behind every no makeup look is a multi-step skincare routine. Lash lifts, microblading appointments, and possibly even Botox. The skin must look untouched by effort, yet meticulously maintained. A modern paradox that Victorian women would have understood all too well. Then as now, the appearance of effortlessness required intense behind-the-scenes labor. Just as Victorian women had ornate dressing tables and powder boxes, we now have minimalist hygiene rooms decked out with diptych candles, Aesop hand soaps, and gold-accented facial rollers. These spaces, often shown in apartment tours and get ready with me videos, signal a quiet form of luxury, taste, control, and the privilege of space. The new minimalism isn't about having less, it's about appearing to have just enough, just the right products, the right packaging, and the right kind of branding. It's performative restraint, and it's just as exclusive as the maximalist excess that came before. What's especially interesting is how this aesthetic rewards looking natural, but not being natural. Flushed cheeks or uneven skin tone are acceptable if they're the result of cream blush or no makeup highlighter, but actual imperfections, acne, redness, texture are still quietly excluded from the clean girl fantasy. So in a way, we're still operating within the Victorian beauty logic. We value the illusion of purity over the reality of it. The goal isn't to be clean, it's to appear as if you were born clean, with perfect skin and no flaws. It's skin as performance once again. This brings us to a larger question. Is the clean girl aesthetic really about being healthy and natural, or is it just a new form of social gatekeeping? When glowing, blemish-free skin is equated with discipline, self-love, and femininity, what happens to the women who don't or can't achieve it? Just like in the Victorian era, the burden of perfection falls hardest on those with the least access to it. Skincare isn't just personal care anymore. It's a social script, and you're expected to follow it flawlessly if you want to be seen as respectable, responsible, and desirable. So ask yourself, is a modern obsession with clean beauty about authenticity and wellness? Or is it just a prettier, softer way to say the same thing Victorians did over a century ago? That your skin reflects your worth. And it's so true. I mean, if you think about, because I work in a medical aesthetics clinic, and these procedures are expensive. So like my advice to anyone is just don't lay out in the sun a lot, don't get sunburned, and wear sunscreen. Because then you won't have to spend thousands of dollars getting CO2s later in life. Chapter 3, La Mer and the Rise of Skincare as a Luxury Industry. Let's talk about La Mer, perhaps the most iconic example of how skincare has transcended function to become pure luxury. This isn't just a moisturizer, it's a status object. Retailing at over $300 for a 2-ounce jar, which is tiny, La Mer promises transformation, firmer, smoother, more radiant skin, thanks to its signature miracle broth. And yes, that's actually what they call it. The origin story reads more like a modern myth than a skincare innovation. Created by aerospace physicist Dr. Max Huber after he suffered burns in a lab accident. After thousands of experiments, the story goes, he developed this proprietary fermented potion from sea kelp, which supposedly holds the secret to skin renewal. But what La Mer is really selling isn't hydration, it's aspiration. It's not just about the ingredient list, it's about the narrative. You're not just buying cream, you're buying into a story, into exclusivity, into the promise that you, too, can access the sacred blend if you're willing to pay the price. And that price isn't just financial, it's symbolic. When you open a jar of La Mer, you're engaging in a ritual of luxury. You're signaling taste, status, and a kind of self-care that is less about necessity and more about indulgence. It's skincare for the beauty elite, the final frontier of quiet luxury. La Mer's rise wasn't just organic, it was orchestrated through celebrity culture. Its mystique was amplified by A-listers who made the product mainstay in the luxury lifestyle playbook. Jennifer Lopez famously claimed that she bathes in it. Chrissy Teigen once posted a photo of her skincare routine featuring multiple La Mer products, worth over $1,000, casually captioned as part of her everyday ritual. And then there's the Kardashian effect, when Kylie Jenner casually reveals a mini fridge stocked entirely of La Mer jars. The message isn't subtle. This is what having it all looks like. And more importantly, this is what caring for yourself looks like, if you're rich enough to do it right. That messaging has seeped into influencer culture, where skincare isn't just about what works. It's about what looks good on camera, what fits into the aesthetic, and what gets unboxed. Entire TikTok accounts and YouTube channels are now dedicated to luxury skincare reviews, shelf tours, and ASMR unboxings, where the crinkle of tissue paper and the weight of a glass jar are part of the appeal. In these videos, skincare becomes an object of desire. Not unlike a designer handbag, it's something to covet, to display, to perform. And the more expensive it is, the more value it seems to have, even if functionally it may not outperform a $20 moisturizer from the drugstore. But that's not the point, because what La Mer and brands like it have done so effectively is tap into a deeper cultural desire, the desire to feel exceptional in a world where everything is fast, mass-produced, and algorithmically driven. Luxury skincare reintroduces the fantasy of the handcrafted, the exclusive, the rare. The jar is heavy, the cream is rich, the branding is elegant and understated. You're not just moisturizing, you're treating yourself like art. You're affirming your worth, one expensive dab at a time. And yet, all of this raises a bigger question. Is La Mer really skincare, or is it fashion? Has beauty care become the new couture? Like designer clothing, luxury skincare isn't necessarily better, but it means more. It's symbolic. It speaks a silent language of refinement, discernment, and success. It says, I care about myself, and I can afford to care in this way. In this sense, La Mer is less about skin health and more about personal branding. It becomes a badge of identity, no different from a Chanel handbag or a pair of Louis Vuitton heels. In a digital world saturated with consumption, where our identities are curated through product choices, La Mer stands as the ultimate skincare status symbol. Its value is maintained not by science, but by scarcity, aesthetic, and cultural cachet. It's not about what it does, it's about what it says. So the question remains, when we buy La Mer, or aspire to, are we chasing results or are we chasing recognition? I mean, it is true. Like, I wonder if La Mer, let's say La Mer was like $50 a jar. I'm just wondering if the celebrities would want to buy it because they like knowing that they're buying something that the average person can't afford to buy. So it elevates it just like a Birkin bag. And it is true, like, okay, so I got a mini sample of La Mer from Sephora. It was like a gift with purchase, and I've always wanted to try it because I've just never been able to justify it because it's so expensive. And so I got this little baby jar. And one thing I noticed, it does have a very similar texture to Nivea. I've been using it every night. I mean, my skin does feel soft. Whether or not I'd want to pay that, I don't think so. So I kind of want to try half face Nivea, half face La Mer for a night and just see how the difference is. Let me know in the comments below. Do you use La Mer? Do you think it's worth it? I mean, I feel like a little does go a long way, and I did see it available at Costco, at least in Canada. Chapter 4, Skincare and the New Class Divide. Skincare has become one of the most quietly divisive symbols in today's consumer culture. A soft, glowy battleground where class lines are drawn with serums, facials, and the right kind of exfoliant. While the wellness industry publicly preaches inclusivity, healing, and self-love, there's an uncomfortable truth lurking beneath the surface. Having good skin is expensive, not just financially, but logistically, emotionally, and socially. To meet today's standards of flawless, camera-ready skin, you don't just need a well-lit mirror and a bottle of cleanser. You need time, you need space. You need access to resources from the right dermatologist to the high-end facialist to advanced treatments like microneedling, LED therapy, and chemical peels. You need the luxury of leisure, time in the morning and evening to perform a multi-step ritual that's equal parts spa treatment and identity and performance. I mean, I'm seeing a lot of these skin gyms on social media, so it's like a gym for your face. I've never been to one. It does look interesting where these facialists are like doing all these massages, and it's probably a monthly membership. The unspoken message embedded in this world is subtle but powerful. If your skin isn't clear, maybe it's your fault. Maybe you're not drinking enough water. Maybe you're not disciplined enough. Maybe you haven't invested, and yes, the language of investment is used constantly in the right products. The implication is that clear skin is a sign of moral and personal virtue, and the more someone glows, the more they seem to prove their self-worth. This is where skincare becomes less about health and more about social sorting. Just as education, wellness, and fashion have long operated as covert class markers, skincare has emerged as a new form of aesthetic currency, one that signals where you stand in a quietly competitive, ever-Instagrammable economy. Historically, we've seen this before. In the 18th century, powder, wigs, and painted faces weren't just fashion statements. They were indicators of class and wealth. In the 19th century, corsets sculpted the idealized body not only into a fashionable silhouette, but into one that said, "I don't work. I have time to shape myself." Today, we're shaping ourselves again, not with whalebone or talcum powder, but with glycolic acid and retinol. If you can afford to slather your face in La Prairie's skin caviar, fly to Paris for a facial, you're not just engaging in self-care, you're sending a message. I exist in a different tier of the beauty economy. But for the vast majority of people, this level of access is out of reach. And yet the standards set by those who can afford it are pushed onto everyone else. Social media platforms like TikTok and Instagram are filled with influencers and content creators with flawless skin promoting routines that are often unaffordable or simply unrealistic for the average person. And while there's a growing wave of content focused on budget skincare or drugstore dupes, even those are sometimes viewed as second best, a compromise rather than a celebration. The phrase drugstore skincare has taken a quiet stigma, used as a shorthand for less than. In the influencer beauty space, affordable often means amateur, or worse, irresponsible, as if using CeraVe instead of La Mer is somehow a personal failing. This judgment isn't always overt, but is pervasive. Skincare recommendations are often framed around doing what's right for your skin, with expensive products quietly coded as more intelligent, more informed choices. People with acne, hyperpigmentation, or texture are frequently treated as cautionary tales rather than just humans with skin. The result is a culture that weaponizes skincare as both solution and acquisition. If you don't look radiant, the implication is that you haven't done enough to fix it, that your skin is a problem, not as a result of genetics, hormones, or environment, but poor choices. The divide is widening as luxury skincare brands continue to market themselves as necessities for true wellness, and as influencers receive free PR boxes of creams that retail for more than a week's rent. The gap between the aspirational and the attainable grows more pronounced. In a world where appearance is increasingly currency, skincare becomes a gatekeeper. The person with the pristine glow is assumed to have their life together. The person with bad skin is read as careless, lazy, or simply undeserving of the same social value. So is skincare still self-care, or has it become something more insidious? A performance of control, a symbol of socio-economic privilege, a gatekeeping tool dressed in spa tones and floral essences. When we talk about skin in the language of wellness, we risk ignoring the reality that true good skin often requires systemic access to healthcare, to time, to money, and to peace. Skincare, once a personal act of care and comfort, now functions as a visible marker of class and a new kind of currency for a new kind of capitalism. And that brings us to the next layer of this conversation, because if glowing skin is the new wealth signal, then wellness itself has become the ultimate status flex. Chapter 5 is wellness the new wealth flex? In today's world, wellness is no longer just about health. It's about hierarchy. What once was considered a niche concern limited to yoga studios and green juice bars has now exploded into a global billion-dollar industry that touches everything from fitness to food to mental health to skincare. And right at the center of this wellness economy is our skin. Skincare has become the most visible and arguably the most marketable frontier of personal well-being. But make no mistake, this isn't about survival or basic hygiene. This is about signaling. Having the time, money, and energy to dedicate to your skin is a modern status symbol, a way of saying I have my life together, I can afford to care for myself. As the world grows more unstable, economically, politically, and environmentally, the wellness aesthetic offers the illusion of control. Flawless skin, glowing with expensive serums and rare botanical extracts suggests that you are managing your stress, sleeping 8 hours a night, and fueling yourself with organic meals. Of course, none of this is guaranteed, but the appearance of wellness has become just as important, if not more, than the reality. In this way, wellness isn't just a lifestyle, it's a flex. The soft-spoken cousin of luxury fashion, the clean girl's beauty routine offers a quiet but powerful message. I don't just survive, I thrive. This idea is reinforced in pop culture, particularly in the portrayal of what's come to be known as quiet luxury. On shows like Succession, we see billionaires dressed in cashmere sweaters with no labels, sipping green smoothies while vacationing in Tuscany. There are no flashy logos, no loud declarations of wealth, because true wealth, we're told, whispers, and the same logic is seeping into the world of skincare. The new luxury isn't just about Sephora hauls or glittery packaging. It's about obscure serums and minimalist glass bottles with names like Elixir No. 3 or Marine Collagen Essence. You might not recognize the brand, and that's exactly the point. If you know, you know, and if you don't, you're not a part of the club. This is the high-gloss world of wellness as identity, and it thrives on exclusivity. Products are often marketed through scarcity, with waitlist, micro-batch releases, and mysterious ingredient stories that blur the line between skincare and alchemy. The allure of these items isn't always in what they do, but in what they imply. That you have access to something others don't, that you are connected, discerning, and above the fray. In other words, your ability to care for yourself becomes a form of cultural capital. But underneath the aesthetic softness of this moment lies a harsher truth. Wellness has taken on a kind of moral glow, one that suggests that if you're well, you must be doing something right. That glowing skin isn't the result of discipline, hard work, and virtuous choices. That you've figured out adulthood and, by extension, life itself. But in reality, the wellness glow often reflects something else entirely: privilege. It reflects access to healthcare, a stable income, a flexible schedule, a stress-free environment, things that are not available to everyone, and certainly not evenly distributed. And yet we rarely talk about wellness in terms of access. We talk about it in terms of choices, placing the burden of health and beauty on the individual while ignoring the structures that shape what's actually possible. Skincare in this context becomes a kind of soft armor, a way to protect ourselves not just from the environment, but from social scrutiny. A radiant face says, I'm healthy and I am balanced and I am in control. But it also whispers, I belong. And that perhaps is what we're really buying when we spend $200 on a face serum. We're not just purchasing hydration or anti-aging benefits. We're buying belonging to a class, a lifestyle, a fantasy of wellness that promises safety, admiration, and relevance. So the question we have to ask is, when we invest in skincare under the banner of self-care, are we truly caring for ourselves? Or are we performing a version of ourselves for a culture that equates surface beauty with inner virtue? And when we look in the mirror, do we see wellness or just wealth reflected back at us? Skincare isn't just about taking care of ourselves anymore. It's about being seen as the kind of person who takes care of themselves. And in a digital age where appearance is currency, having perfect skin is a silent resume, a symbol of class, morality, and control. From Roman baths to Victorian powder rooms to your TikTok For You page, skin has always been more than skin. It's a status symbol, a story we tell the world about who we are and who we can afford to be. So the next time you look at someone's 10-step skincare routine or the shelf lined with La Mer, you ask yourself, Is this really about health or is it about hierarchy? So let me know in the comments below. Do you think luxury skincare is worth it, or is it all a status game? And what do your products say about you? I'm always curious, like, what are your favorite products? What do you use and why? I'm always trying to find like affordable alternatives. I know Costco has some good skincare. I'm kind of going down that rabbit hole right now. So anyways, let me know in the comments below. I'm so curious your thoughts on this subject. All right, thanks for watching.